With the godfather of the NFL draft, ESPN's own Mel Kiper Jr. Mel, the Bengals, 18th overall. Where are they going?
You think Byron Murphy II from Texas, if you were there, doesn't look like he will be now. So you think about where we can go with the defensive side of the ball, the offensive lines, an area where they could add a Tali Fuaga from Oregon State if he were still on the board. Amarius Mims is getting some momentum. The tackle from Georgia only started 8 games in his career, but he's got a ton of talent. But I think Byron Murphy II is who I pegged there, but now he's moved up to the point where he's probably going to be gone. So are you going to trade up to get him? Probably not. He may go top 10. So again, Byron Murphy II, because the defensive tackle position we thought was going to be strong didn't turn out that way. And he's solidified that top spot despite only having 5 sacks. He did have 30-plus pressures. And he's got a lot of talent, so they're going to roll the dice somebody that he could take the close calls and turn them into sacks, like a Trayvon Walker needed to do at Georgia. So Byron Murphy II may not be there. Could they adjust and go offensive line? Some people think Brock Bowers could be there. I don't see that happening. Brock Bowers, if you want to get him, you may have to go into the top 10. So really the Bengals are a tricky pick because their offensive line, they don't have to go there, but they could. And if Fuaga is there, I think he would be a little bit tough to pass up as a right tackle. And only allowed, I don't think he allowed a sack. One sack or 0 sacks his whole career at right tackle. So he's a good player.
Right now, it's weird to say this, but the Bengals have a question mark right now at wide receiver. With T. Higgins requesting a trade earlier in this offseason, he is expected to play on the franchise tag. But for the coming years, what does this draft look like wide receiver-wise from the Bengals' perspective?
It's super strong, and it's a lot of depth into the second round. So I think you look at the first round 7 or 8 wide receivers, the second round 7 or 8 wide receivers. Now you say, who could be there when they're picking? Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU certainly could. Xavier Worthy from Texas. Adonai Mitchell from Texas. Xavier Legette, South Carolina. All those receivers are going to be on the board. Maybe one is gone because the big 3 are going to go early. That would be, Marvin Harrison Jr., Romo Dunze, and Malik Neighbors. Then after that, there's a little drop-off down to the guys I just talked about. So if they want to take a Brian Thomas Jr., who had a great year. I mean, he averaged 17 yards a catch, 17 touchdowns opposite Malik Neighbors. So if they wanted to go wide receiver, they got a guy with length, he has the catch radius, he ran great, he tested great, and he had the production. So Brian Thomas Jr., if he were there, would be an intriguing guy to think about.
The offensive tackle position, they got Trent Brown on this 1-year deal. It seems like a revolving door, that position for the Bengals year after year. Who's the guy in this draft that you have your eye on that isn't at the top of the board, but maybe you could get him a little bit later that could fit well in Cincinnati?
Well, if you're talking 18th pick overall, Tali Fuaga from Oregon State, if you were there. You think about Amarius Mims from Georgia. Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma is another one. It's going to fall right tackle because all these guys were right tackles. They weren't left tackles. You have to move over. Or you figure they can come back. Remember, Lane Johnson had moved. But these guys are natural right tackles. And that's not an easy transition to say, if he played right, he played left, he played lefty. That's not easy. So you have guys that's their natural position. They gained experience. They were doing a great job in pass pro at the collegiate level like Fuaga was. I don't think J.C. Latham will be there from Alabama. I think the guys who would be in play would be Fuaga, Mims, Guyton from Oklahoma, people like that at that right tackle spot that showed a lot of improvement. Mims, that you're rolling the dice that the talent and the potential will lead to him being a Pro Bowler with only 8 collegiate starts. But I think you're right. Right tackle is going to be in a position they're going to have to think about because those kids at that point, I think, would present some value based on the way they're graded.
One thing I found really interesting in one of your recent mock drafts, in the 3rd round, you had the Bengals selecting running back Blake Corum out of Michigan. Why do you think the Bengals are going to go running back? They did just sign Zach Moss to a 2-year deal.
It got down to the best player on the board. And again, running backs are all these backs are going to go 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Every one of them. I don't think you'll see it back into the first back that comes off the board in the 3rd round. Jonathan Brooks from Texas would have been a 2nd round pick, but he's come off an ACL on November 11th, and that's going to push him down just a bit. But I think a Jalen Wright from Tennessee, a Blake Corum, Michigan, Marshawn Lloyd from USC, Trey Benson, Florida State. I think a very underrated player if you're thinking 3rd, 4th round is Isaac Garendo from used to be at Wisconsin, transferred to Louisville. Braylon Allen, Wisconsin's another one. So there's going to be a host of backs. It gets down to, do you feel like the value is there at that point for a really good player that back in the day would have been a 2nd round pick? You get him in the 3rd round. So that's just basically a best available player type thing. But the depth at wide receiver, if a Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky was there in the 3rd round, tough kid to pass up. So I think there's going to be a wide receiver maybe slips through the cracks that is really intriguing in round 3.
Big picture about this NFL draft. It's changed so much over the years from when you first started covering it. Leaving Radio City Music Hall, being all over the country. How does it compare? What is different about it now that it's on this big stage?
It's totally different in this from the standpoint you have the local flavor, but you used to have everybody coming from all over to New York. So you'd see people from every team represented in New York, whether it was Radio City, wherever it was. Started at the Grand Ballroom of the Marriott Marquis Hotel back in the day, and before that it was other places. So I saw it grow from 500 people in a balcony to what it is now, where you got hundreds of thousands of people and millions watching. So I remember Tuesday morning when the draft started, and they said, who cares, right? You're just you're announcing names. So again, to see it get to this point after 41 years of doing it at ESPN, 46 years of covering it, I don't think you've ever thought it would grow to this magnitude. But I think moving it around is great. It's going to be at Lambeau next year in Green Bay. Who knows what it'll be after that? It's been spectacular everywhere we've been. Nashville was unbelievable years when they went to Nashville a few years ago. So it's been, and Detroit's going to be great. So I think every city kind of looks forward to it now to host the draft. And it brings, obviously, with the Lions playing so well, and they're thinking Super Bowl. It really, the Eagles, I think when we went to Philadelphia for the draft, they won a Super Bowl that year. So, you never know. You never know. It's been a good omen for some Kansas City. In Kansas City, they won a Super Bowl. Philadelphia won a Super Bowl. Maybe the Lions. Maybe that continue that good luck from the draft carries over to the season.
So Bengals fans are going to be begging for one in Cincinnati then.
Yep.
Besides trying to find your favorite local pumpkin pie, what's the biggest challenge of doing these on the road now?
On the road, I think in terms of doing the draft where we go to cities, it's no different than doing them in New York, really. But I think when you get to the third day and the day 3 after doing day 2, which goes until midnight and thereafter, you get up and then you're doing the whole draft. So I remember when Freddie Cadelli it was the day 2 of the draft. We were in New York, and I came in just to relax and have a good time. And Freddie was sitting there, and I said, Freddie, why are you here? And he said, I'm here scoping out because next year we're televising every pick. I was like, wow, we're going from that to this, and now you see the way it is now. I think people would like to see where the undrafted free agents go. Now that'd be part of another hour, 2 hours, because that's what guys get signed as soon as the draft's over. So to see it grow, like I say, to the magnitude it is it's rewarding for me because I believed in it back in the day when nobody else did. Even the NFL didn't believe in it. They didn't even want to televise. So to see it come to this point is something that I thought would be popular. People say, why? Because it brings college football and the NFL together, and because this draft will springboard you, like we talked about the Lions. The Lions could end up being there. The Bengals think that, hey, we stay healthy, keep Burrow healthy, we can do great things. We've been to the Super Bowl not that long ago. Could have won that game. So every team feels like with this draft being something that brings players in on both sides of the ball, and we get an A-plus draft or a B-plus draft and have a successful draft, we can catapult to a Super Bowl. So that's why the immediate return on your investment is why the NFL draft surpasses every other draft in every other sport by miles.
Mel, enjoy the heck out of this weekend. Enjoy it. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.